Hey there everyone. We have an extremely simple recipe for you to do. Can take you literally minutes. You could even get it done maybe in 2 to 3 depending. But the other fabulous thing about it is that it is a pantry stable recipe. So this freezes well. It can just stay in your fridge for the week, so it makes great stuff for lunches. Pairs really well with crackers, or you can add a number of accompaniments to make it more than what it is. So let's get started, right? So simple ingredient list, all right? So we have black beans. It calls for a 25-ounce can. I don't have it. For once in your life, you are not rinsing and draining, you're only draining, and then you are keeping the liquid, I know, that lovely black bean liquid, for you to decide how soupy you want your chili to be. So I am just adding in those 2 cans of black beans. I have already drained them. Then next it calls for a 16-ounce jar of salsa. So I'm using a combination. I'm actually trying to use up one of my jars of salsa and then mix it with my favorite salsa, which I'll show you in just a second. So it's just an entire 16-ounce jar that we're throwing in. This is actually my favorite salsa. It's called Di Fratelli, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You can get it at Festival. I've also requested it at Charlie's. I haven't looked now in the last week or 2. But they have their tomato products at Charlie's. They just, in the past, have not had the salsa. So you could also band with me and request this salsa as well, and hopefully we might be able to see it. All right, then it calls for 8 ounces of frozen corn. I looked in my freezer, I don't have corn, and I don't feel like using the corn in something else. So I'm just gonna throw in a can of corn. You know, as it is, I have 5 extra ounces of beans. Okay, and then that's it, and then it goes on to you deciding what kind of accompaniments that you want with your chili and how thick that you want it. So you can see that without anything in there of liquid, that it is very thick, right? So that almost could serve simply as something that you would use in a tortilla if you wanted. I'm gonna try adding about half that liquid and see what I like. Usually, for me, kind of the simplest way to look at this is I will just toss in 1 can of beans without draining at all. So that also makes it easier for me. And then I still like the idea of it being a little bit soupier. And so now you can see it's really taking on that soupy consistency. Other accompaniments. This is great served over some baked sweet potatoes. So that's a way to make that meal much heartier. You could also dice up some avocado and really add some oomph to it as well. If you like just to have some fresh diced tomato, that certainly is there. We are huge fans of onions, so I don't normally put this in there, but if you wanted to make it even more complex, you could saute some chopped onions. Just keep in mind, obviously, that's going to add to the time that it takes to do this recipe. I also happen to have these really cute little small potatoes. So if you didn't have sweet potatoes, but you wanted to do these, or just regular baked potatoes, right? And then also, once you have heated it for 20 minutes, I can't recommend enough that you would want to do some fresh lime juice in with that chili, as well as, you know, cilantro if you have it. I didn't have too much in my AeroGarden today to choose from. If you are a hot sauce fan, certainly throw hot sauce in there. And again, this might be your option or your choice if you are choosing to not make it soupy at all. I was going to, and so I'm just going to set that to simmer. I was going to actually do 2 recipes, but then as I was looking at things today, I realized these are almost the exact same recipes, but it's interesting in how they are used differently. So obviously just made a chili or a soup, depending on what you prefer to call it. But there's also a bean spread recipe that we make. 1 can of black beans, rinsed. 2 tablespoons of lime juice. Sound familiar? Here is the difference. There is a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Then there is a 1/2 cup of salsa and 2 tablespoons of cilantro. The difference though is with this one, what you're going to do, you're not going to use the bean liquid. You are going to throw it in either your blender or best would be a food processor. And wow, this stuff is fabulous on a tortilla, heated. That's my favorite. And then often I will put, you know, the normal accompaniments. So lettuce, tomato, fresh raw onion, avocado for sure. You know, whatever it is that you like to throw in yours if you want to give it a little bit more oomph. I like having those fresh vegetables because then it just also gives that crunch to things. And so you have the different textures kind of working. Also, if I had, well, which I do, I have some mini peppers over there, so that would be another option to go with. It also works extremely well as just simply a dip to bring, if you wanted to bring that with donkey chips to a party. And also in the past, we've also usually, when we've served it as a sample, we have served it with crudités, so, you know, carrots, celery sticks, that kind of thing. So could replace like your dill dip or that kind of thing. So just thought, hey, it doesn't really make sense for me to do, you know, almost the exact same prep. You are going to end up with a consistency that's just a little bit thinner, a little bit more, a little thinner than refried beans. But again, that depends on what your preference is. And, you know, you also could make this almost like a 7-layer situation, or how, I don't know how many layers it would end up being, right? But you could do, you know, the lettuce, the shredded, you know, the chopped up tomato, avocado would be fabulous in there, although I would really urge you to make sure, you know, I would make the amount that you think you're going to eat. Obviously at a party it's always difficult to tell, but spritz that on the top with lime juice to help with the oxidation. But yeah, this is our bean spread and our Yes You Can black bean chili.